So for the last, I'd say 4 years, my neighbors here, we've been dealing with the Mariner East project. It goes right through my backyard, and I'm a mom of 2 little guys, a 3-year-old and a 4-year-old. For me, it's really important to stand up for our community, and we've been fighting, knocking on the doors of everyone who represents us from the township on up. We've had doors closed, letters not answered, calls for action not answered, and so a group of my neighbors came together. We sat right around the back patio table and had the conversation about what's our next move. When the trees started coming down and the bulldozers started rolling into our neighborhood. We finally had this audience of people that was outraged and ready to take action. And so we did the opposite of giving up. We actually decided that we were going to expand our message, and we were going to open up our little Marchwood neighborhood group to become the Euclid Safety Coalition. Very early on, my involvement in this was literally just being the neighborhood mom, knocking on doors, talking to neighbors, trying to get my neighbors elected to represent us here locally so that we could make change for our community here. I want to get a t-shirt with my logo on the back made that says, "Hello, my name is nobody." I mean, because truly everybody told us nobody's going to stop them. Nobody's going to change this. And we decided, sitting around that patio table that night, that okay, well, we're nobody, and we're going to step up and we're going to make change. When I think about things like gun violence in our communities, and I think about public education and how important it is and how much it needs to be just completely rethought in Pennsylvania in terms of how we create equality and how we support our teachers and how we build a really good future for our kids. I think about how I can't wait for them to be older because I have to help them, not just my grandchildren. You know, my kids need help. So, you know, that was one thing I had to consider. But the other thing I had to consider is that I'm not a perfect person. People say to me all the time, "I could never do what you're doing." And I'm like, "Why not?" And they'll say, "Well, because I was divorced, or because I was a hot mess in college, or whatever." And I say all the time, I'm not perfect either. And so, yes, you can do this. And I personally have experienced some really difficult times. Not just have I experienced having children with special needs, I've been a small business owner, and I have had what has happened to a lot of people, especially during the financial crisis, which was when I was experiencing it. I've experienced losing a business, and in losing my business, I've experienced bankruptcy. I spent a lot of nights thinking about it. I spent a lot of nights crying about it. But at the end of the day, when I really gave it thought, and I really made considerations about who is leading our country and who is leading our state, I thought, you know, the only difference between me and that person is that person has the courage to say, "So what? So what about what I may have done in my past? So what about some of the things I may have struggled with that I don't necessarily feel great about? But I have a mission, and I was brought to this, and I need to step forward for giving my gifts to the world, and in the way that I've been brought to do that." It's really, really important to have people who are in office who represent us, who represent real people, who have real problems, and are dealing with people issues, not political issues, not ideological issues, and certainly not special interest who are influencing our voice with money. For the last 20 years, our politicians have been setting the stage to put a pipeline in my backyard. And I can't stand by and say that that's okay, and that they get to stay there and continue to represent us when they're taking money from the oil and gas industry. They've hijacked our voice. They've hijacked our community. and they're putting our children and our families and our investments in our home and our environment at risk. So I never planned to run for office. That was never part of my big master plan. I'm running for office because of what's happening here to my neighbors and to my family. And all I can say is that what you get is a mom and a member of the community and somebody who's going to look at policy and approach Harrisburg from the perspective of a mother and the perspective of your neighbor, and somebody who's willing to look at these things honestly with no agenda other than to represent you. My commitment is that I'm always going to listen first to my constituents and understand what's important to our community and speak honestly about the issues, because that's what we deserve from our government.